You probably think the Sean Combs saga ended when the judge read the verdict in October 2025. You think the system finally worked, the bad guy is in prison, and the industry is cleaning house. You are wrong. While the headlines shouted about his conviction, they whispered the part that actually matters, the acquittal. Everyone expected him to get life without parole, just like R. Kelly. The reality, he was acquitted of the most serious racketeering and sex trafficking charges and sentenced to just over 4 years on lesser counts. That means with good behavior and time served, one of the most accused men in music history could be walking free by 2028. But here is the twist that no one is talking about. The real war didn't end in the courtroom, it just moved to the editing room. Right now, from inside a federal facility, Diddy is launching a desperate legal strike against Netflix and 50 Cent to stop a documentary series that supposedly contains the evidence the jury never saw. This isn't just a celebrity feud, it's a calculated, high-stakes battle over a cache of footage that could override the court's decision and destroy a billion-dollar empire for good. By the end of this video, I'm going to answer the 3 questions that the mainstream news is too scared to touch. 1. How did his legal team actually beat the racketeering charge when the evidence seemed overwhelming? 2. What is specifically on the stolen tapes that Netflix supposedly has, and why is Diddy claiming they were obtained illegally? And 3. Who is still on the payroll, ensuring that the biggest names in Hollywood don't go down with him? Let's look at the timeline, because the devil is in the dates. According to court documents filed on October 3, 2025, the sentencing hearing was chaos. The prosecution asked for 15 years minimum. The defense asked for probation. The judge settled on 50 months. That is 4 years and 2 months. But to understand why this number is so shockingly low, you have to look at what happened 3 weeks earlier during the jury deliberation. According to reports from The Guardian on December 1, 2025, the jury acquitted Combs of the heavy hitters, the RICO conspiracy and the sex trafficking by force charges. They only stuck him with transportation for prostitution. This is the difference between a criminal enterprise and a bad boyfriend in the eyes of the law. His lawyers played a game of technicalities that would make your head spin. They argued that the famous freak-offs were consensual adults making bad choices, not a coerced criminal operation. And without the racketeering charge sticking, the federal sentencing guidelines collapsed. That is why you're seeing a sentence that looks more like a tax evasion penalty than a punishment for decades of alleged abuse. But here is the catch. The prosecution's case relied heavily on witness testimony, which can be picked apart. They didn't have the raw, unedited footage that showed the mechanics of the operation, or at least they couldn't use it. This brings us to the most dangerous man in this story, and it's not Diddy, it's 50 Cent. For years, Curtis Jackson has been trolling Diddy on social media, hinting that he knew where the bodies were buried. We all laughed, we thought it was just rap beef. But on December 1, 2025, Diddy's legal team filed an emergency motion to block Netflix from releasing Sean Combs' The Reckoning, the docuseries produced by 50 Cent. Why? Because the filing claims the series uses stolen footage that was never authorized for release. Think about that phrasing. He isn't saying the footage is fake. He isn't saying it's AI generated. He's saying it's stolen. That is an admission of authenticity. If the footage wasn't real, he'd be suing for defamation. By suing for theft and copyright infringement, he's indirectly confirming that the tapes exist and they show exactly what 50 Cent says they show. So what is on these tapes? According to leaks cited in the filing, the documentary includes home video footage dating back when Combs was 19 years old. It reportedly shows the inner workings of the parties, the conversations with handlers, and potentially the faces of other celebrities who've managed to stay out of the indictment. If this footage airs, the public court of opinion will retry the case that the federal court just closed. This is why Diddy is fighting harder against Netflix than he did against the Department of Justice. A 4-year sentence is survivable. A documentary that exposes the entire industry is not. Now let's re-examine the money, because that's where the real expectations versus reality gap widens. You expect that after a conviction, the money dries up, the brands drop you, the streams stop, and you go broke. That's what happened to Kanye. That's what happened to R. Kelly. But Diddy's situation is different. His wealth wasn't just in endorsements, it was in equity and catalog rights. Per reports from Variety in late 2024, he had already sold off a massive portion of his publishing rights before the indictment hit. He cashed out at the top. This liquidity gave him a war chest that most defendants don't have. He could afford the kind of defense team that finds the one loophole in a RICO statute. And even now, with the revolt stake sold and the Ciroc deal dead, he's sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars in liquid assets. This money is being used to fund what insiders are calling a scorched earth silence campaign. There's a specific filing from the civil suits, the ones filed by Cassie Ventura and Don Richard, that hints at this. The civil settlements are where the real truth is often buried because they come with non-disclosure agreements. While the criminal trial is public record, the civil settlements are private, and Diddy has been settling. We know from the timeline that he settled the Cassie lawsuit in under 24 hours back in 2023. That was the first crack in the dam, but since the 2025 conviction, a new wave of settlements has quietly closed. Why would he settle if he's already going to jail? Because of the look-back window. In states like New York and California, laws were changed to allow survivors of sexual abuse to sue regardless of how much time has passed. These civil suits have the power of discovery, meaning lawyers can demand emails, texts, and financial records. If Diddy fights these in open court, those records become public. By settling, he keeps the receipts sealed. He's paying a premium to keep the names of his associates out of the press. He isn't paying to save his own reputation anymore. That's gone. He's paying to save the people who haven't been named yet. This leads us to the biggest unanswered question. Who else is on those takes? The freak-offs weren't solo activities. They required logistics, hotels, travel agents, and guests. Lots of guests. The internet has spent 2 years speculating on lists. We've seen the memes. But the reality is more boring and more sinister. It's not just famous actors. It's music executives. It's corporate fixers. It's the people who sign the checks. If the Netflix documentary comes out with the stolen footage, it won't just show Diddy, it'll show the ecosystem that protected him. This is why the fight over this documentary is the most important legal battle in Hollywood right now. It's a proxy war. On one side, you have 50 Cent and Netflix, who see a massive payday in exposing the truth. On the other hand, you have Diddy and arguably a dozen other powerful figures who need that footage buried forever. Let's go back to the courtroom for a second. There was a moment during the sentencing that everyone missed. The judge mentioned character letters. These are letters written by friends and family to beg for leniency. Usually, in a high-profile case, we see who wrote them. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis got dragged for writing letters for Danny Masterson, but in Diddy's case, the list of letter writers was sealed or noticeably thin. This silence is loud. It tells us that Hollywood didn't stand up for him publicly. They abandoned him to save themselves. But privately, you can bet there are back-channel communications ensuring that he stays quiet. The 4-year sentence is the compromise. It satisfies the public's need for a conviction without toppling the entire industry. He does his time, he comes out, and the secrets stay in the vault. That was the plan, but 50 Cent is the variable they didn't account for. He doesn't need the industry's permission. He has his own money and his own platform. And this is where the stolen footage argument gets tricky. In the filing from December 1st, 2025, Diddy's team argues that the footage is attorney-client privileged or personal property that was taken during the federal raids and then leaked. If the footage was seized by the feds, it's technically evidence. Leaking sealed evidence is a crime. But if it came from a personal server that was hacked or a former employee who went rogue, it's fair game for a documentary. 50 Cent has claimed for months that he has sources inside Diddy's camp. If that's true, it means the betrayal is coming from inside the house. The timing of this lawsuit is also suspicious. It was filed just days before the documentary was set to drop a trailer. This is a classic PR strategy called freezing the asset. Even if Diddy loses the lawsuit eventually, the goal is to tie it up in court for 6 months, a year, maybe 2. By the time the documentary comes out, the public might have moved on. He's buying time. But the public isn't moving on. The retention on this story is insane because it taps into a fundamental distrust of the elite. We watched him get away with it for 30 years. We watched the industry celebrate him while rumors swirled. And now we're watching him get a sentence that feels like a slap in the face to the victims. Let's talk about the victims for a moment, because they're the ones getting lost in this billionaire battle. The acquittal on the sex trafficking charges was a devastating blow to the accusers. It essentially told them that the system didn't believe the force element of their stories, even if it believed the transportation part. This is a nuance of the law that feels like a betrayal. The jury looked at the money, the lifestyle, and the blurred lines of consent, and they hesitated. That hesitation is what bought Diddy his freedom in 2019. However, the civil payouts are an admission of guilt in everything but name. You don't pay tens of millions of dollars to settle lawsuits if the claims are baseless. You pay them to make them go away. The disconnect between the criminal outcome, acquittal on major charges, and the civil outcome, massive financial settlements, is the reality that the title of this video promised. The expectation was justice. The reality was a transaction. There's another layer to the financial motive here. 50 Cent isn't doing this just for justice. He's doing it for the bag. The streaming rights for this documentary are worth millions. It's set to be the biggest docuseries since Tiger King. By positioning himself as the anti-Diddy, 50 Cent has revitalized his own brand. He's become the voice of the people, the truth teller. It is a brilliant pivot, but it also means he has a financial incentive to make the documentary as shocking as possible. This brings us to the hidden mechanism I mentioned at the start. The reason Diddy got 4 years instead of life isn't just about the law. It's about the limitations of the evidence presented in court. The rules of evidence are strict. Hearsay is out. Improperly obtained recordings are out. Character assassination is out. But a documentary has no such rules. A documentary can play the tapes. It can interview the people who were too scared to testify. It can connect dots that a jury isn't allowed to see. The court of law requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The court of public opinion just requires receipts. And that is why Diddy is more afraid of Netflix than he is of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. In prison, he is just an inmate. In that documentary, he is a monster. And once the world sees the footage, there is no coming back. So where does this leave us? We have a convicted felon serving a short sentence. We have a billionaire rapper turned documentarian holding the keys to the vault. And we have a panicked industry praying that the judge grants the injunction to stop the release. If the judge blocks the documentary, it confirms that the system protects its own. If the judge allows it, we're going to see the biggest celebrity fallout of the decade. The payout is this: Diddy didn't win, but he didn't lose as hard as you think. He kept his darkest secrets out of the criminal record. He kept his co-conspirators unnamed. He secured a release date that allows him to have a third act in life. The only thing standing in his way is a hard drive in 50 Cent's possession. The irony is thick. Diddy spent his career controlling the narrative, owning the masters, and directing the video. Now he is the subject of a video he can't edit, distributed by a platform he can't buy, produced by a rival he can't silence. And that 4-year sentence? It might feel short now, but if that footage leaks, 4 years is going to feel like an eternity when he knows what is waiting for him on the outside. He won't be coming home to a comeback. He will be coming home to a graveyard of his own making.